Hey, everybody, and welcome to Making Miracles Happen. I have a wonderful guest here with me today. I love all the people that have been coming on board to talk about miracles, and I'm just as excited about this person as I have been about everybody else because I pick the most phenomenal people, and they say yes. If they say yes, they're amazing. So can you please just go ahead and introduce yourself and let everybody know who you are?
Yes. First, thanks for having me, Adrien. I'm Jennifer Ackad, and I'm an embodiment and authentic transformation coach. I mainly help women rest in their, what I love calling their authentic power, their sacred power, and really rebuild their lives based on the truth in their hearts. So I work deep with women. I've been doing this for about 10 years, and I skipped from a mechanical engineer life and I went following my calling after. So I made a huge jump about 10, 11 years ago to follow my calling, to follow the truth in my heart, and this created a new whole life setup.
How do you get into that? How do you let go of your old life and get into a new one? There had to be a catalyst, right?
Yes, totally. I mean, I used to travel a lot in my 20s. So opening new doors of new awarenesses and new space inside of myself. And I used to ask myself a lot of questions of how come I could feel peace and freedom when I was traveling, but not feel peace and freedom when I was in corporate environment. So all of those inquiries brought me to different types of walls, and I entered spirituality. And then at one point, all of this was catalyzed to me going to my boss's office and telling him, I need to go home. And the home was really home inside of myself. It was really a calling. I had this choice point of either falling down or going and being in the unknown. So it was really based on a calling and on intuition. Totally.
Did you plan anything out? Or was it just like a decision that you made one day?
What do you mean by play something out? Plan something, you said?
Yeah, did you plan what you were going to do after you said, I got to go home, I'm leaving?
Absolutely not. All I knew is that it had been a while that I knew I wanted to take space, and I could not get pregnant at that moment. So I was like, you know what? It's the perfect time. And let me take that opportunity to, I knew I wanted to be of service, but I didn't know what. I just was called by the healing in the healing world back then. And I started taking trainings, and I became a masotherapist, natural therapist, yoga therapist. I took many trainings and followed some kind of flow and meditated a lot. And that it started building one step after the other, one break after the other, and building confidence and building trust on when I sit down and surrender inside myself. Well, there are answers that come my way, and there is guidance that's coming my way, and I attract the right teachers on my way. So we're not really alone. Of course, we go through moments of crisis and of moments of fears. I think you can relate to this on the unknown path, but then we kind of become used to it, and the planning comes in small stretches. But then you realize that whatever structures you are too much attached to, they break anyway when you choose this authentic path. Whatever you plan too much ahead, when you surrender, at one point it just breaks, because the planning and the need for a stiff structure really comes and stems from lack of feeling safe. But when you start developing that inner sense of safety, you less and less need that outer structure to hold you. And this is what I discovered throughout the years too. And this is what I offer to people too, to find this inside themselves.
I think you're the first person who's actually mentioned that the aspect of not planning or not planning too much ahead of time. I haven't had this conversation yet, so this is fascinating to me, and I kind of want to take it in that direction, because before we started filming this, you said you like to go with the flow. You don't really like to plan too much before like an interview, and I was like, yeah, I didn't plan for this either. Let's just go with the flow. Yeah. And I don't know if I've thought about this too much, but I want to think about it now, because I'm like, oh yeah, this makes sense. I've never liked to plan in my life, ever. Like, I am the first person who's like, if I get a phone call, hey, do you want to come do a TV show? Hey, do you want to come down and have a party? Do you want to do this? I would just be like, is it yes or no? That's it. Is it yes? That's all I need to know. Is it yes or no for me? And if it was yes, it was yes, and I would leave. And if it was a no, then I wouldn't do it. But at some point that became very tiring for me. And I decided that I really needed to start learning how to plan, and I did. But I wouldn't plan that far in advance. I would only plan little stretches just so it wasn't as stressful, right? And this is what you're saying. You're saying if you're planning, you should plan in small stretches. So I've never thought about the fact that this is what I was doing, right? I'm just thinking that I'm a planner, but there is different ways of planning.
Of
Why
course.
do you feel that it's so significant? Just to go a little bit more in depth in that, because this is a part of making miracles, people, is exactly what she said. Why is it so important not to plan too far in advance?
I think you got to respect your style. Some people need that. Like, we have to understand that it's a way of structuring your life, and some people need more structure than other. So what I find important is to listen and pay attention to your authentic self, to who you are, to your needs. What is it that your body needs? Some people need a lot of flow, a lot of freedom. Some people need a lot of structure. It's the masculine and the feminine, and that balance inside each one of us. So the more I was touching, I was releasing my how I was controlling before and over planning. And maybe some people plan and they're not controlling. This is not what I mean, but I was maybe a bit more controlling before. I was allowing more my authentic self to rise and expand, and my feminine side. So it became a dance of planning and not planning, and going in small stretches, because my discovery was that when I was planning 10 years in advance, you know how in interviews, sometimes in corporate environments, they're like, where do you picture yourself in 10 years? What do you want to be? Like, this question when I was 17 and I had to choose my career path made me so stressed that, I still remember the feeling of how stressful it was. And I was like, what do you mean? What do I want to do for the rest of my life? I could not, my whole being and soul could not understand that question when it was presented to me at such a young age, or at any age, to be honest. Because the truth is, I don't know. I'm getting to discover who I am. And as I discover who I am, the structures naturally come around and are put in place with my choice of action. So yes, I am in control. I am the leader of my life, but I am basing this on my inner world and what wants to unfold, and where my creativity wants to naturally unfold. Then I have a clear answer of what I want to be creating, giving birth to. And then I'm like, okay, let me use my masculine principle, which is really the masculine inside, right, that we all have, and build a structure for that creation to be born. Or else, without structure, we just go lateral and go in the flow, and at one point we get tired. Our nervous system needs to ground and have some kind of structure to feel safe. And this is also at the root of what I teach, to build that inner safety inside.
There's so many directions I want to go in right now.
Yeah, I hear you.
With the planning aspect of things, I really enjoy that you're really talking about this, because I feel like this is the part where people need to start taking notes. It's one thing is, you said at 17 they ask you, where do you want to be in 10 years, and you said, I don't know what I want to do with the rest of my life. So at 17 you feel like 10 years is the rest of your life. Is you start to realize, you're kind of like, yeah, you don't really have the wherewithal or the thought process to really know that, right? And part of really releasing control and moving into miracles in the first place is letting universe guide you, letting your higher self guide you, or so it makes sense that planning doesn't really make sense if you're being guided. Would you say that?
Totally. It's really about surrendering to the answers in your heart, to the truth in your heart. I work a lot with the womb, so surrendering to the wisdom of the womb, to surrendering and resting in yourself. And when we rest and we let go of our protections and what we could refer to as our ego or our superficial personalities, everything that makes us control everything. Once we start realizing that it's a whole comedy and it's kind of an illusion, we rest. And when we rest, there are new answers, deeper answers, closer to who we truly are, that start emerging. And then it touches us. There's something that really touches us deep, and we're like, wow, okay, I have the choice, because I know that if I keep on going the way that I was going, I'm going to be fooling myself. I'm actually hurting myself doing this. And this most of the time translates in physical pain with a big P. Like, I mean, it can be emotional or body or. That's all right. So yeah, so when we are not in peace, when we experience all those symptoms, usually I take this as an entry door. It's an alarm. It's a place to stop and take that step back and just breathe deeply, rest, and ask that symptom, what are you about? What are you actually telling me? And as this symptom starts releasing, it unfolds, then it has answers. And then we get new answers and we continue playing and creating with that. That's my way, at least, of surrendering and the process in which I take my body on a daily basis. This is just how I create the miracles of my life, in if I have to link this to the subject that we're sharing, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. The other aspect that I really wanted to ask you when I was being pulled in two different directions, I'm like, planning, or it was you described the masculine energy, and you described the masculine energy as very structured, right? Can you describe the feminine energy so that people know the difference?
Yes, the feminine energy, the first word that comes to me is the receptivity. It's the openness to receive the seed and create with it. It's the openness to receive the guidance and flow with that and create with that. So there's the sensitivity, the vulnerability, and obviously men can be that too, because they have that feminine principle in them. But I really refer to that to also this vastness of possibilities, like that huge creative potential of infinite, the void, when we enter that hole in the womb, and like it's just so vast. And it's a reset point. So I really the feminine principle for me, it's that huge creative power, huge creative potential that can reset and rebirth and give birth all the time as it receives guidance and a seed. That's
Nice.
what it is for me and how I'm experiencing it in my body.
A
Huge
lot of people describe the feminine energy, because you described the masculine, you were kind of showing a square. A lot of people describe the feminine energy as kind of like a ball of energy. It's like a round with no structure, right?
Yeah.
It's the creative energy. And so that's when you start to balance, you're able to use both.
Your dance. You start being in an intimate dance between the feminine and the masculine, and it's respect that starts being created between the two poles inside of each one of us. And then, of course, it manifests in life. Then our relationships start changing totally. We go deeper in our relationship, in our communication, in our clear needs, and in what we want to create. What direction do we want to take together? Not in fight, honoring each one's power and potential, really with deep bow and deep respect. And of course, I can speak from a place of ideal. I'm not saying I'm perfect, because we do have hiccups and we're human. But as we surrender, and I witness this, the more I surrender, the more there's harmony in my relationships, and the more there's real peace between masculine and feminine, and we can actually create, we can actually speak and say, we have a kid together. What can we create together for the highest benefit of that child, or the highest benefit of our lives, so we can be better parents? I mean, it's different questions. It's not about arguing with I'm right or you're right or I'm wrong or whatever it is, that we can sometimes just hook so much onto. It really, we just take it at a different level when we surrender.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. What was the biggest surrender you feel like you took? Was that in the corporate world, or was there something else?
Many surrenders.
It's never just one. It's never just one.
Of course not. Poof. I mean, yes, surrendering to my calling and leaving corporate life, leaving my yoga school and trying to, and really realizing that I needed to fly and to trust myself into creating the life that I wanted, and creating my service platforms, choosing to give birth, to carry life, to surrender when the baby was coming out, and just feeling everything and surrendering to the process, as my ego wanted to so hook on my old personalities and just wanted to be the woman that I was before, but really, really resisting the mother, right? That was a huge surrender. Or surrender to the fact that my whole body and soul and being wanted to homeschool my son. And I was like, really? Like, really, life, this is where you're guiding me? And then surrendering. And the second I surrender, this huge amount of energy and power just fills me up, because I choose to follow that inner guidance. My primal power gets activated. I get pushed into my calling, and then I receive the blessings that come. But as I was, because let's say it takes me 1 year to surrender, or 6 months to surrender, because some steps in life are harder to surrender to, because we're really attached to our setups, right? But the resistance costs a lot more in energy than actually saying yes and receiving all the blessings and saying, you know what? Okay, this is the path that I'm choosing. And then you're so blessed. There's so much gratitude that comes with it. There's so many jewels that come with it that you're like, okay, like I'm learning the lesson. Take less time to surrender. Really like trust that process, because I really consider myself as being very sincere in my heart in following that path. So when there's that sincerity in your heart, like you receive sincere answers. We can trust this. We can
How
trust
do you
it.
receive those answers specifically for you?
For me, it's intuitive, and my intuition speaks in terms of body sensations and in terms of kind of voices inside, but more like flares. It's more flares. It's more textures that I receive. It's like something that opens, and I receive a thread of energy. Let's be just real. I receive kind of a thread, and it just opens, and it makes me see the potential of creativity, which I was referring to as the feminine principle. And it's kind of the seed of the direction. I see the direction. I see how my body, my womb starts opening to starting creating, and what are the steps that I need to take, and then it becomes an intuitive impulse. It's like, okay, yes, let's let life penetrate me and let me give birth to that direction, and let me take responsibility for this. It requires a lot of it's grounding. It's very grounding. The place I'm speaking from, it's really coming from the root of my body, and sometimes I resist a lot that too, because it can feel so serious, right? But it's the responsibility that comes. You respond to this life current. Maybe it sounds a bit woo, the way I speak, but you can ask more like precise questions if you want also.
Oh no, we like woo.
Okay. All right. I'm not so sure what your audience is.
Because really making miracles happen, it is woo, isn't it? Because you have to let go, and you have to speak to energy, and I've been talking about how the way that this, and I'm sure the story has been heard many times by the time we get to the series live, but I keep telling the story of how this happened. I used to have a radio show, and I used to interview people. And I'm literally just kind of sitting on my bed, and I hear a voice come in just as clear as me and you were talking that says you have to start interviewing people again. Mm-hmm. And I surrendered to it. Normally I would fight my guides, and I was like, you guys came in and actually spoke to me that clearly. I can't argue with you. And I said, if you make it happen, then I'll do it. And within 3 days, it was happening. So yes, this is a woo-woo crowd.
Yeah, we hear voices.
But when you speak to intuition, a lot of people, they don't know the difference between like their fear, like, oh, I feel like I'm not supposed to do that, but is that a fear, or am I really getting the answer that I'm not supposed to do that, right? And so you're saying that you said that what I really love was the texture is different when you get intuitive information, right? Yes. And so I'd like you to speak a little bit more about the difference between your fears and information.
Yes, when I choose out of fear, it creates anxiety in my body. It creates some kind of toxin. It creates like some kind of rush of energy, and like kind of, not feeling ease, not feeling flow. It's like I'm rushed, and I can get confused, and I feel like I need to hurry up. Like it's not the same type of urgency. It's like, if I don't hurry up, like I'm going to miss out on something, or I'm going to lack something, or something's going to happen to me or to my family. This is fear. And you feel my body right now, how it speaks. My diaphragm is choking my lungs. My breath is shallow. So it becomes kind of this anxiety, like, it stressed me out right now just sharing about this. When it's out of intuition, there's that voice, there's a knowing, and there's something peaceful that comes with it. It's, yes, there's an urge of energy, but there's enthusiasm. There's rawness of energy. There's power. There's primal. There's like aliveness. There's like, whoa, shoot, what is this? And like, yeah, okay, let me receive this and let me move forward. There's more like that intrinsic joy that starts happening. And I'm not saying that it doesn't come with obstacles, because that's not the truth. It really does come with obstacles and saying yes as the doors open. But it's that surrender as the fear appears, and which I call the obstacle. It's like, oh, hey, the fear is here. Do I choose fear, or do I keep on being nourished by that flow. Do I choose fear or do I keep on being nourished? And that's really the game. Because of course I have fears. It's not that I'm fear-free. Fears appear as I dive deeper and as I appear more, because that's the choice that I'm making. But as the fear releases, energy is given back to me, because the fear is resistance in the body. It's in the form of a tension or in the form of pain. And as that tension starts releasing, then we gain back that energy. And that's the whole embodiment practice I teach to people, and how I was trained also as a yoga therapist.
All right. So this is an exciting topic because you teach it. So for me,
Yeah.
and this might speak to a lot of people who are watching right now. For me, I've always been psychic, right? I've always kind of known what was going to happen, and it was a knowing, or again, a voice that would come in and tell me whatever. And I used to be a celebrity psychic, and it was, even doing it professionally, it was like, the difference between fear, and the difference between intuition, and the difference between getting a psychic knowing and hearing somebody telepathically through experience. But because it was such a natural thing for me,
Yes.
I can't say that I could have described it the way you did. You can tell that you teach it, because you could tell somebody how to know the difference, when I'm just like, I just know the difference, don't you?
Yeah, it's classic. I totally understand.
Like,
Yeah, the body is our temple.
Kind of understand it. So I love that you're getting into this and really helping people know the difference, and letting people know that you do teach this. So if you guys want to know how to use your intuition and to get those specifics, because they're so important for people who don't do this every day, for people who haven't experienced this since their childhood, right?
And the way, yes, totally. And really the way to help fear release is to ground the nervous system. Because fear, we can put it in the category of survival mechanisms, right? Something is triggered inside of us and we are in survival. Something makes us think that we are in threat. So our brain, our reptilian brain, starts interpreting this as, I'm going to die, something bad's going to happen. So the fear gets triggered and the adrenaline gets triggered in the body. But when we start learning how to ground ourselves on Mother Earth, on nourishing energies, really grounding our physical self, right? Then we have space to discharge all this overload of information that is most of the time not even ours, or it's like emotional triggers. It's just energy and motion that we just don't know how to process. But when we have a ground to rest, then Earth takes care of it, or the ground, our bone structure starts taking care of it, like we're resting. And then we take that space. And in that space, fear starts dissolving. And then more love. Love is just behind the fear. Love starts circulating. And with the love comes our true answers, or truest answers, let's put it like this, layer after layer.
Where are you at right now?
I am in Costa Rica. I'm in a spiritual community called Pachamama Eco Community. I've been coming here for 11 years, and it's the first time I actually chose to spend 6 months here. So I feel super blessed. Super blessed. Yeah.
Where are you from originally?
I'm from Montreal, Quebec, Canada.
All right. So my question to you.
Yes.
We're going to marry this together. How did you have to surrender to get to where you are right now?
Oh my gosh. That's a huge story. The first time I came here, the first time I came here, it was, again, huge guidance. I was in a crisis with my parents. I had lived in South Africa for 2 years, came back home, stayed 3 days, took my backpack, went to Brazil, had awakening session, like huge awakenings. And I was like, holy, what is happening to me? I was just jumping from one frequency to the other and being cleared, like my whole field was being cleared. And I was starting to be like just awakened, sharp senses. And I was not thinking I was crazy, but I could not relate to many people. Let's put it like this at that point. So I came back to Montreal, had to live at my parents' house because I had sold everything, going to live in Africa. But then I re-entered the roots, right? Which is for most of us where all the wounds stem from. So I had to deal with this. And I realized that I had to go and dig, because I was in conflict. Like it was not such a good environment at that moment. We were like just in conflict and just like, yeah, it was not super nice. And at one moment it went a bit overboard. And I asked the guidance before going to bed at night. And at that night, I had found about this community here just online randomly, through a friend who referred me like this. And I asked guidance and I asked, please show me during my night if I must take that jump and go to that community. And I was still in the corporate environment also back then, right? And in the night, I mean, I like just mystical experiences came, and I can enter the details of this, entering huge sound, huge light, vision, seeing faces coming to me, like name it. There was so many experiences opening up, and I knew that because I connected my energy to that community here, all those things were opening, and I chose to interpret this as a yes. I chose to interpret this as a yes. And of course, it totally transformed my life. And this is how I started coming here 11 years ago. And it became an extension of home, to come here. And now I chose to come here for 6 months. And I chose to have that flexible life from corporate environment to create a setup where I can be of service to people and be flexible with the way I offer the services. So I could come here and be flexible with my laptop and with my son and be in natural environments to nourish my soul, my body, soul, and being, right?
Wow. That's
I mean,
incredible.
I don't know if that answers your question, but I entered the woo-woo stuff again a bit.
Well, I like your surrender. Your surrender is literally just asking to get answers in your sleep, and you get them and you're like, okay, I'm ready to go. See, the part of the releasing control I feel when it comes to kind of like the topic we're talking about right now and how you're surrendering is a lot of people will ask for an answer, Jennifer, and then when they get the answer, they deny it.
Yeah.
I used to have people come to me and I used to have people come to me and they would say, I have an answer to, or I have a question to ask you, right? And then they would ask me that question. And when I get the information, they don't believe it or they don't want to hear it. That's not the answer that they wanted. And so they resist it. And then a year or two later, they come back and they're like, you were right. But it took me a year or two to get there, right?
Yes, and that's important also, because the physical process of the resistance really unlocking at the physical level. On other levels and other dimensions, we can go way faster, right?
Yeah.
But when we really enter the 3D reality and look at facts and our life setup and our situation, we realize that here we are in the time frame of time and space, right?
Yeah.
So there is a certain element of time before the information really comes in, enters the consciousness, our body, our cells actually integrate the information and goes through the physical transformation of now my foot is actually ready to take that step. Now, what happened when I had this night of visions and all of this, I took a quantum leap. I chose to really follow the spirit guidance and I went. I don't say that I didn't have to pay consequences after. Because I made such a leap, I transcended the body. I chose to just go with that super high guidance. And I went, transformed, and then came back to my reality. It took me about 3 years to recover from this. And recover, I say, it was not bad, but I was flying so high that I had to remake my way back down into the physical body. And this is why the body became such an important part of what I teach right now, because it's great to be spiritual. It's great to be in the 3D, but where's the bridge? And this is what I want for people, to create that bridge between the reality of our physical body and also our guidance.
Yeah.
Both go together. There's